Thanks for listening to the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast, where each week we talk about a free piece or two of technology that you can use in your classroom. I'm your host, Shanna Martin. I'm a middle school teacher, technology coach, and personalized learning coordinator for my district.
And I'm her husband and the only producer she could book, Fuzz Martin.
So clever. I feel like now there should be like a little intermittent like pause or like a, so what's today's theme, folks?
Yeah. What is today's theme? I think, for so long in this show, like you're the expert on all this and I'm just the guy who pushes buttons.
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I just tinker around with such things often.
But having a pun to look forward to writing each week gives me hope and
on
joy.
Your little post-it. It's a little post-it of hope. I would also like to point out, for those of you who have been listening since like way back episode 1, because today, by the way, P.S., episode 91 today.
91. What?
You used to make fun of me being a technology coach / teacher, and I would have all these post-its lined up on my Mac to talk about the podcast for the week, and I have deviated from such things, and I don't use post-its anymore. I use the Trello board, and then I talk about stuff. And I'd like to point out to everybody out there that guess who's got a Post-it stuck on your computer right now?
See? I'm using my computer for other things at the moment. And that is to record your podcast.
Yeah. I just felt the need to point that out because you always teased me about my Post-it notes, and here you are using one.
I have another Post-it note that I'm going to just read right now so I can get rid of all of these Post-it notes because you told me to write this down.
I know I did.
Just a note to any of you who use Google Tour Builder, that service will be going away on July 15th, 2021. Google is shutting that down and driving you over to Google Earth, right?
Yeah, in Google Earth. So they've made it interactive. So I was always a big fan of Tour Builder. And to me, Earth was a little hefty and it would slow things down. But they've definitely made huge changes where you are now able to interact with Google Earth and you're able to create like interactive tours within Earth. And so you can take all the tools from Tour Builder, and Google Earth has like a project section now where you can create interactive projects with it. So
similar functionality-ish.
Yes, it's actually a cooler version now of Tour Builder. Okay. So they've kind of pushed out Tour Builder. They're kind of like weaning out Tour Builder. Yeah. And they're adding all those features. They're already in Google Earth. I've switched over this year with the projects that I usually did in Tour Builder. I had the students start using Google Earth, and it works great on Chromebooks, and the kids were able to do everything they needed to with no issue. So
very good.
Yeah, so let's just note to everybody out there.
You can still export and download your tours right now.
And do it now before you lose them.
Yeah.
If you want to keep them. I know some people keep family vacations in there and like various other adventures and trips planned. So yeah, make sure you download stuff if you want to keep it.
Very good.
Cool.
Now I have no more Post-its.
No more Post-its.
And the floor is yours. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about reading support tools. So this time of year, good old May.
Yes.
Where like the year is winding down, and for some reason it always switches to how are we going to keep kids learning over the summer? So it's like we haven't even finished the school year yet. Let's finish the school year first. But I also get I'm a planner, and so are many other people. So if you want to have resources available for your students, or if parents start asking like how can I support my child over the summer, it's nice to have some tools kind of in your back pocket. You can also use these in your classroom. Actually, some of them are definitely used in your classroom. So the reading support tools for classroom use, but also they can be used with families or parents to keep them in the loop and or to support students with their work over the summer. So these are kind of some reading tools that are helpful in both the classroom, and if parents need some support, they are there for them as well. So our first site today is called CommonLit. It is Common, COMMON lit, LIT.org. And it's a really cool site. It has so much stuff. It has so many resources for teachers and students. And it's one of those where you kind of look at it and like, overwhelmed overwhelmed. But at the same time, it's very well organized. So you can find things. So basically, you sign up as a teacher, and it's free. And it connects to your Google Classroom. So it can connect directly to your student classes and your class lists, so you don't have to upload any of that kind of stuff. It's all there and available for you. And there's lots of little tour buttons. So if you want it to like explain different things to you, it shows you as a little video, kind of explain each part of the website. But they have a library of content, and you can search by like specific book, genre, grade level, literary device, text sets, themes, and then they have Spanish specific texts. And grade levels are 3rd through 12th with these resources. So they're going to be a little bit older students, not early readers, but a little bit later on. And so what's nice about this is they do have some of the classics in there. So you'll see like The Lottery, and you'll see like various other things. But they also have very relevant news articles and things like that to do comparisons with. So when you go to search something, like if I clicked on 10th grade, I could sort it down by genre or theme or literary device if I wanted to, or you can just look. So they have short stories, they have science fiction, they have opinion pieces, they have non-prose, they have poetry, they have like I said, informational text. There's just so many different options. And then what's cool is like, so if I pick like literary device, and I know like as a former language arts teacher a long time ago, and the teachers I work with, like when you're looking for a specific, like I want to teach
symbolism,
like figurative language.
Okay.
All right. And I'm going to click on that. It's going to sort out and give me things that will just help me with figurative language. And one of them is Barack Obama's accepts his Nobel Peace Prize in 2009. So like the pieces are not just going to be like the same old figurative language things that you look at frequently or that have been used over and over. Some of that is in here. So there is like Mark Twain in here, and you have classic pieces, but they also have options for newer pieces of work as well, which is kind of cool. So if I can click off figurative language and I want to look at mood, so I can click on mood, and then I have various short stories. I have poetry. So it's kind of cool. There's just a lot of options and a lot of choices. So you can pick the grade level you want to teach, and then the topic you're teaching, the theme. You can pick text sets. So if you're going to click on that, it'll say like one of the text sets is horror and suspense. So you can click on horror and suspense, and it's going to give you all kinds of resources specific to that. And then what's cool is once you open something up, so I picked the good old Raven, good old 1845. Not like things have been written forever. But once you pull up the piece that you want students to read, you have the option to assign it in Google Classroom. You can download the PDF. You can share it via like email, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter. You can have a student preview. So what would the students see when they get this piece of writing and when it's assigned to them? You can also, which I really appreciate, is it translates. So you can translate it to pretty much any other language. So you can translate it like into Spanish if you need to, or French or Polish or Portuguese or any translation you may need for your students, which is really appreciated. And they also have a read aloud version for some of them in English, and some other, it depends on each piece of writing as to what they have the audio in. But it's really kind of cool because then you could read it to your students, they can read it on their own, they can have it read to them, you can change your font sizes. And then there's also activities that you can go with it. So there's guided questions, there's an annotation tool, there's assessment questions. So along with all of this, there is a ton of resources. There is a little note that if you go through the assessment questions and you want to use those, that please not to share them online, so that way students aren't going to use assessment stuff to cheat online, which I appreciate the little like notation, like other teachers use this too. But there's just so many options. There's paired texts that you can pull up with topics. There's related media. So then you can connect it to like so I'm still in the Raven, and then they have like a short film about the Raven. And then they have a parent guide, which I appreciate because it does do 3rd through 12th grade, that if you're going to do, some of the younger students, you might need to send stuff home with parents. Or again, we talked about like summer, parents want to help their students. This also has a parent guide as well. There's also like assignments that you can put along with it. When you have your digital class like loaded in, there's just a whole lot of information and topics that we cover regularly. There's a whole section on the Holocaust, which now that I'm teaching social studies would have been really helpful here a week ago when I was teaching. But they have like Irish literature and heritage, and they have Jewish authors, and they have science of the body, and they have Russian literature, and they have the Cold War, and they have just so many different topics and text sets available, both fiction and nonfiction. So there's just a ton of stuff that you can use. You look like you're reading over there.
I was reading, I was just like going through the, like when you click into an article and they have the different footnotes and stuff, and then they have the little guiding questions, and they're actually, they're not easy. They like make you think of the context, which is why it looked like I was deep in thought, because I was reading The Phoenix Bird from Hans Christian Andersen and taking the quiz, and it's you have to use context clues to come up with the answer. It doesn't say like the bird was on fire. Like, what describes this bird? It was on fire. Spoiler. In this question, it said that this bird's picture hangs on the walls in the homes of rich people, and it was like you had to like choose from a list of like people worship it, or they're confused by it, or they're intrigued. So it's really neat and makes you think. Yeah.
And there's just so many different ways of using it in your classroom, whether you're assigning students some reading or you're supporting. I always think like our students do a lot of choice. And if they're doing dystopian in the classroom, this would be like supplemental to the dystopian that they are already reading in class. Just another set of tools to use, and a lot of resources, and very well organized. So if you need something quick, or if again you're supporting students, maybe some of your students are struggling and they need a little extra, like maybe a short story version of something you did in class to support what you're already teaching. There's just a ton of stuff here, and it's very easy to get a hold of and to share out with your students.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so commonlit.org, check it out. There are things for all content areas too, not just reading, but it definitely covers a lot of different areas. So try that one out.
Great resource.
Yeah. So our second resource is Biblionasium.
Yes, Biblionasium.
So it's like a book gymnasium.
Yes.
It's a Biblionasium.
Yes.
What? So this site, as I was like digging around with it and playing around with it a little bit with some suggestions for teachers that I work with, and for anybody, I guess a lot of teachers use Goodreads in their classroom. I think that's probably the most common. I mean, not even in your classroom, just everybody uses Goodreads to share out your reflections on books. You keep your little bookshelf. If you're unfamiliar, you keep a little bookshelf of things that you want to read or that you have read, your suggestions. So Biblionasium is basically a kind of like a teacher-controlled version of Goodreads for your classroom. So you have like a code and your students join your class, and you have your bookshelf, and then you can choose out your titles that you want to have in your classroom, or that you have like you have physical copies in your classroom, and then these are like the digital books on your shelf, if that makes sense. And you can write suggestions as a teacher, but also students in your classroom can write suggestions like, oh yeah, I read that book, I love it. So it's kind of like Goodreads, where students in your class can suggest books to other students in your class or in your grade level, however you choose to organize it. And you can set up like reading groups. So if you are doing like guided reading groups. You can put groups together and like they could keep their little shelf of books, and you can connect parents to it. So then parents can see what their kids are reading. So there's options with parents too, which is kind of cool. Parents can see their child's reading history, their reading logs, their favorite books, their reading preferences, and their book reviews. So if you choose to connect parents to it, they can track their own child's reading, see what they're doing in class, and then, you know, also see kind of their reading history and then check up on what they're reading. They can also see like recommended or required books for class. So if the teacher says like, hey, everyone in class, we're reading nonfiction on winter. That's a great topic.
Yeah.
Then parents can be like, oh, okay, this is the theme we're going for in class. And you can ask your child like, hey, what winter book are you reading? They also can donate books to your classroom through a wish list.
Oh, that's cool.
So you can actually they can order books to your classroom too. But I liked the parent stuff because even though I teach middle school, a lot of times parents are checking in like, how can I be more involved with my kid? Or how can I check up on my kid? Because not all middle schoolers report back daily as to all of the things they did in their classroom with their parents. So this is a way for parents to kind of be involved and know what their students are reading. But I like it because it's a way of, I wouldn't call it social media, but it's a way of students interacting online and recommending books. And if like parents don't want their students on Goodreads, or if they're a little bit younger and you're still working on the whole like being good digital citizens piece, or you don't want them floating out there anywhere on the internet, it's another option for teachers to be able to use to set it up where students can share books and review, and it's a little more controlled and just a lot more options. So this one is definitely, it's K-8.
Yep.
I would even say probably K-6, but depending on your situation in your school as to like control of stuff. But it is nice because there are a lot of precautions around this one, and it's won a bunch of awards for like cool tools and all kinds of things for being keeping kids' privacy and things like that.
Sure.
And still having
they
book
actually
recommendations.
Refer to themselves on Twitter as "We are good reads for kids" in quotes.
Yes.
With teacher tools.
Yeah.
Well, pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of a cool one. Check it out. So for summer purposes, if you have your students set up before the school year ends, you can have your little bookshelf of recommendations for summer reading. And then there's challenges built in there where kids can like have a classroom challenge or have various things going on. And that way they can check it through the summer. You can message them and put new books, and they can recommend books to each other, even though they won't be, in the classroom.
Right.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Biblionasium. Yeah, check it out.
Awesome.
And our last one, I'm just throwing out there. We're not going to dig into it too far, but just as another teacher resource, especially, I always think this time of year, my student teacher has left me, and she is actually in another placement now. But for new teachers, when you're getting a job or transferring schools or changing subjects, or you just need a place to like, I need ideas or strategies, AdLit. It's ADLIT.org, AdLit.org. All about adolescent literacy. So resources for parents and educators and kids 4th through 12th grade. So if you're looking for some common core ideas, if you're looking for reading strategies, if you're like prepping kids for the ACT, or if you're like, P.S., you're going to teach high school this year and you need how to set up more academic rigor in your classroom. Those types of things, they're all addressed here in adlit.org. It's a great refresher if you're like, oh yeah, like I remember doing that a while ago, or oh, I should bring that back kind of stuff. But just like basic setting up like research and reports and helping students navigate various things when it comes to testing or when it comes to readiness in various areas. There's a lot of strategies in here and how to set them up, and if they're for vocabulary specific or writing specific, what you should look for during reading time. So it's just a great resource of a lot of the basics, but I think we all can use a refresher on that on occasion too. And there's new stuff in there too. It's not like old school. It's updated, and there's a lot of just information in there. So adlit.org, if you get a chance, it's a great resource for just working on daily classroom things that sometimes we forget about or we kind of get away from. And there's a lot of information to check out.
Very nice.
So those are all of our reading support tools that are helpful in the classroom, but also, setting up for that good old summer break we got going on.
Sliding into the end of the year.
I know, we can see it. It's almost there. Here we got about 3.5 weeks.
It's going to go by so quickly, and also it's going to take so long.
Right now, it still feels so cold outside that it doesn't feel like...
It feels like March yet.
Yeah.
Here.
In good old Wisconsin.
Yeah. We had to bring the plants in tonight.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of plant babysitting. Remember that big old garden we talked about last week? Yeah, it's still sitting empty. And it will for another couple weeks.
Yes.
So the plants come into the garage at night and go back out during the day.
Nice and comfy little shelf in the garage.
We do what we can. So anywho, make sure you're all taking care of yourself.
Yes. Be healthy.
Thanks for tuning in. This has been the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast. If you ever have any questions, you can find me on Twitter @SmartNWI. And if you want to get more information on the links to the technology discussed in this episode 91, visit smartandwi.com, or you can visit me on Facebook. New episodes each week. Thanks for listening. Go educate and innovate.
The ideas and opinions expressed on this podcast and the Smart NWI website are those of the author, Shanna Martin, and not of her employer. Prior to using any of the technologies discussed on this podcast, please consult with your employer regulations. This podcast offers no guarantee that these tools will work for you as we've described, but we hope they do, and we hope you have a good week. We'll talk to you next time on the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast.